Our first part of our notes, we're going to start with the 3-flap foldable. On this foldable, we're going to write the 5 types of chemical reactions, or the 5 types of chemical changes. So anytime you see any of these 5 things, that tells you that a chemical reaction or a chemical change has taken place. You should remember from a previous year that the difference between a physical and a chemical change is with a chemical change, new things are created. Whereas with a physical change, it's still the same thing, the same substance, but it may look different. For instance, cutting the grass is a physical change because it's still grass, it's just shorter. But lighting the grass on fire is a chemical change because burnt grass and ash is a whole new different thing. It's a whole new substance, so we know a chemical change has occurred. So in this top left flap, that's kind of like our title flap area, and kind of the top half, I want you to write as big as you can, still fitting it in there, chemical reactions. Chemical reactions. And then kind of on the bottom, write they always produce ... Chemical reactions always produce what? Does anyone know? I just said it, and you should maybe remember. Anybody? They always produce, we're going to write the answer on the inside, new substances. So we're going to write new, really big. That's all that's going to go in this box. New substances. Chemical reactions always produce new substances. Oh my gosh, I forgot I have music for us. That's a little bit of Christmas tunes. How about that? The Jingle Bell Hop. Okay, now we're getting busy. We're getting down, yeah. Okay, so the way we're going to remember the 5 types of chemical changes is a mnemonic device. And we're going to say, country girls love their phones. Country girls love their phones. So we're just going to write the first letter of each of those on these outside boxes. And I'm going to start here going down and then up here. So we want to write the letter big, so remember, country girls, so CG, country girls love their phones. Country girls love their phones. Okay? CGLTP. Jingle and a jingling beat. That's the Jingle Bell Rock. Okay? That was a good part of the song. I just had to turn it up a little for you. Okay, the C, at the top half of each box, we're going to write the mnemonic device. And we want to write it a little bit smaller because it's not actually the most important part. So color, no. Up here we're going to write country. Sorry, up top we're going to write country because that's the mnemonic device that we used to remember. So sorry about that. Okay, country. And then on the bottom, even bigger, we're going to write color change. So we want that to be the bigger part because it's the most important part. So country girls, the G stands for gas production. Ooh, can barely fit that in there. Gas production, that's like if you see bubbles or fizzing. And then country girls love. And the L stands for light production. It's like anytime there's fire or a flash. The T is there, and the T for the chemical reaction stands for temperature change. To someone special. Okay, this P for the mnemonic is phones, and this P stands for precipitate. And it's spelled like precipitate. You may remember from like the water cycle, precipitation. Not that kind of precipitate though. We're going to talk more about that one later. Okay, so at the end of the video, you're going to go through and color this however you would like. Make sure when you color it though, you color it so that the actual chemical reactions stand out. Okay, so country girls love their phones. That's how we remember. CGLTP. Color change, gas production, light production, temperature change, and precipitant. Okay, so open the color change flap. On the inside of each of these flaps, we're going to draw a picture that represents that type of change. And 3 of these changes you saw in the chemistry in a bag lab. So we're going to draw the changes you saw there. So for color change, draw your Ziploc bag from the lab. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And draw some substance in there. And in my class, we saw kind of an orangey yellowish. So I'm just gonna lightly. It started as white or red, and then it turned kind of orangey yellowish. Okay? So because we saw that color change, that means a chemical reaction occurred. A new substance was formed. Okay, for gas production, we're going to draw, what was the type of gas production you saw in the video? I mean in the lab. Anybody remember? The carbon dioxide gas was produced when we saw the bubbles. So I'm going to draw a bunch of little circles to represent the bubbles that we saw. And remember, those bubbles, that gas being produced, also made the bag start to fill up. And in my class, we had to burp the bag, burp the bag, burp the bag. So I'm going to draw just some little lines here so remember that it filled up. Okay, we'll go back through and color it later. This is the only one I wanted to color right now because it's color change, so it's important to do it now. Okay. For light production, we didn't see light production in the chemistry in a bag lab, but this is any time you see any kind of light. When you turn on a flashlight, or when you light a match, or if there's some kind of flash, all of those are types of light being produced. So I'm going to draw just the simplest one we know of, which is a match being lit. Okay, so I just drew a stick with the kind of that red match head, you know, on it. This is going to be fire, and then a matchbox here. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it makes sense to you, that's all that matters. Okay, temperature change. We saw 2 temperature changes. We saw the substance get, I think it got cold first and then hot, or hot first and then cold, but we saw both, hot and cold. So draw your bag again in the middle, but draw it kind of smaller, because we're going to draw 2 lab partners, one on each side, and they are loving science class. And this guy's saying, it's hot. And this guy's saying, it's cold. Oh my gosh, that's a good song. So delightful. That's a good place to go. Go ahead and catch up to me. Let it snow, let it snow. Man, I wish it would snow here. Wouldn't that be fun? Snow day. Okay. So we've got our guy saying it's hot, it's cold for temperature change. And for precipitate, we're going to leave this one blank for now, because we're going to actually see a precipitate later on. So we'll fill that in once we see it. Okay, so here in a minute, you're going to get to color this, and I'll show you my example. This is kind of, so you can see when you color it so that the actual chemical change is what you see first. It's the most bold because that's the most important, but also have the mnemonic device on there. Okay? Okay. Trucking right along here. Okay, let's get our other foldable with the 4 flaps. This one's going to go really fast. So for this one, we're going to write the names, or I'm sorry, the formulas for some common substances that you'll use in chemistry. Several of these you've seen before when you talked about photosynthesis. Several of these you may just know from previous years, but you will probably see all of these in chemistry in high school. So these are the ones we kind of just think you need to start to kind of recognize. So a chemical formula is like H2O. So on the first flap on the outside, write the formula for water, H2O. So what H2O tells me is that hydrogen and oxygen got together, a reaction occurred, and water was formed. So one of those chemical reactions caused a new substance to be formed. So we're just going to write the formula on the outside and the common name on the inside, water. Okay, so H2O and then water. This is a good one. And then next, C6H12O6. Anybody know what this one is called? This was on the bell work earlier this week. You may remember it from 7th grade when you talked about photosynthesis. This is glucose. Glucose. Okay. Next is CO2. You may know what CO2 is also called. CO2 is also called, also used in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide. Very good. Okay. Next is NaHCO3. Sodium bicarbonate is its chemical name. Sodium bicarbonate. Anybody know what that one is? We used it with the Law of Conservation of Mass lab and the Chemistry in a Bag lab. It's white, it's powdery and soft. It has sodium in it. It's a hint. It is baking soda. Okay, up to the top here, CH3COOH. This is oftentimes called acetic acid. It's when carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen get together, a chemical reaction is formed, and a chemical reaction occurs, and acetic acid is formed. The common name for acetic acid, you also used in your Law of Conservation of Mass lab, is, it smells bad, vinegar. Okay. Next is CaCl2, calcium chloride. Calcium chloride. So calcium and chlorine get together, a chemical reaction occurs, a new substance is formed, and that new substance is calcium chloride. Calcium chloride is also known as, Miss Lawson has a lot of this in her room. Mr. Revels and I do not, though. This is chalk. Chalk for the chalkboard. Okay, next, I bet everybody knows this one. NaCl. What's the common name of NaCl? Anybody know it? Uh-oh, I stopped it. There it goes. Salt. Salt. NaCl is salt. And lastly, CH4. CH4 is one that we're not going to use in 8th grade, but CH4 was on the STAR test last year. So we're just going to go ahead and throw it out there so you will have maybe seen it just in case it's on your STAR test too. This is one you will probably use in chemistry in high school though, maybe. CH4 is formed when carbon and hydrogen get together and a chemical reaction occurs and it forms methane. Methane is a type of gas. Methane. M-E-T-H-A-N-E. Okay. So once you have all your common names written on the inside, water, vinegar, glucose, chalk, carbon dioxide, salt, baking soda, and methane, and you have all your formulas written on the outside, then you are done. You're going to take some time to color that one too. Here was my finished one. Just kind of highlight some of it a little. So when you're all done, you should have two pretty ones that look like this.